Well, there it is, coming up on 50,000 miles. And you're probably wondering how the car's fared. Well, I won't have time later to do a full update on the car after it goes out of warranty. So I will give you some information now. Obviously, I've done some modifications here and there along the way. You can find them on the blog, adding cameras. I've had seat covers. We have a trailer hitch on the back. But really, what most people want to know is how well does it hold up over 3 years? Or through the warranty period, I should say, since we're basically at 50,000 miles now. The answer is it holds up pretty well. It's really hard to say, though, because this is an earlier build. In fact, the assembly line that this car was built on was dismantled in July of 2014. So about 2 months after this car was built, they shut down that line and they built a completely new production line, which is where the Model S is built currently. And there's been a lot of changes to the Model S since then. They've had the refresh, they've added autopilot, they've added dual motors. None of those things existed back on the earlier line. That included things like hydraulic brakes. This car has hydraulic brakes instead of electric brakes and things like that. So this car is substantially different from the one that is being built currently, and was fairly early on in the process. This is a VIN number around well, it's close to 41,000. Whereas now I think Tesla is somewhere in the 210,000 range. So they've built a lot more cars since they built this one, and they've changed all kinds of things. So you have to kind of take that for what it's worth. But I'll go ahead and we'll kind of go around the car real quick, and I'll tell you the things that have been changed. Okay, first thing I want to point out is that I just did a soccer car pool full of teenage girls, so that's why Bruno Mars is up. So I disavow any of that. Second of all, there's a warning there, and that is not Tesla's fault. This car was rear-ended not too long ago, and so when you hit the warning tab, that's what comes up, is the park assist is disabled on the back because one of the sensors was displaced. Hopefully the module's not damaged. If it is, the insurance will take care of that. So you will see that. But while we're on it, I want to point out that this warning sits there the entire time you drive, and that little triangle is kind of throbbing. You can see that. That's more obvious at night. So I would ask Tesla to consider that secondary systems like this and the tire pressure system, which I know some of the other owners of earlier cars have had issues with as the batteries die, that you can put that up there, that's fine. And I don't have a problem with this appearing when you first start up the car. But I feel like when we go here and we hit this info and we acknowledge that we've seen the warning, that it should disappear from this screen until the next time we start the car. So I'm just throwing that out there. As more cars age, that'll be more of an issue. You know, you hate to rotate your tires and then find out that your tire pressure sensor's battery went out, and you have to live with that warning for the next year, or pay to have it fixed. One of the other things I'd like to point out is that this car is, of course, the earliest software, and people talk about there being lag and stuff on their screens now. Oh, I'm on the wrong side there. But I've never seen that as a problem. It seems to be just responsive as it needs to be, frankly, and I haven't noted any real functional issues. So I know some people say that the newer cars kind of bog down a bit. I think that is probably due to all of the autopilot processing that they're doing, whereas this car doesn't have that as an issue. So it tends to be, you know, fairly quick to do whatever I tell it to do, and that's great. I don't have any problems with that. Just want to point that out there. I'm going to get out because the car is very hot, and we'll talk about some of the other things. Alright, so as far as wear and tear is concerned, we think the car's held up pretty well. There's no major issues with any of the panels or anything like that. That's largely due, I think, to us not having the premium upgrade. So this is like a harder, stiffer material. It's not that soft leather that you get on those. We did that because we have children. And we have had to have the lower seat cushion was replaced at one point because of the frame was like funny in there. I think probably from them checking on a charger or something, even though all those are original. The driver's seat was replaced because it was loose on its brackets, and I haven't had any problems since then. So those are replacement parts, and I'll give you a better look at those in a minute. So again, the seat back is original, but the lower cushion is, I don't know, 6 months old or so. We have been cleaning it with leather cleaner. It gets a lot of dirty soccer players and stuff back here, but the leather itself is held up really well. We have not had issues with these panels rubbing. I know some people do, but we're not very big people, I think. And we do have the weather mats in there, which I highly recommend. The driver's seat, like I said, the driver's seat is newer. It's probably about a year old at this point. Passenger seat is original. The only wear you'll see in here is there. That is because the headliner was replaced because the panoramic roof was leaking and it was stained. And then they replaced the headliner, discovered that in fact they had not fixed the leak at the other service center because we had changed service centers. And so the new headliner was promptly stained, which may or may not show up here. It's kind of in the corners. So that's going to be replaced again. Sometime in that process, this piece kind of right, I don't know if you can see it right on that tip there, got a little bit of wear on it, so they're going to replace that piece as well. That'll end up being done out of warranty, however. Door handles are always a concern for folks regarding these cars. We have had, I believe, 2 of them replaced and 1 of them repaired. So there is a very slight difference. You'll see that this one, it's like recessed just very slightly. And I'm not even sure which one it is actually, but one of the other door handles sticks out a little bit farther, but it's so subtle, I didn't even notice it until long after. We never lost full function of any of the door handles. They just got to where you had to pull a little bit harder. I think the back ones were because the kids would do this thing where they would yank it open like a traditional handle, and they didn't give it time for that very slight delay for the electric latch. So that was a little bit of reprogramming on the kids' part. The charge port was recently replaced. I was having slow supercharging speeds, and they attributed that to the contacts on the charge port being slightly corroded. And I also got a new UMC, which is a whole nother thing. I'm on my 3rd mobile charger at this point. And this one's a new design. It's a little bit smaller than the original one, so hopefully that's fixed. But if you're getting slow supercharging, you might want to have your charge port looked at. Of course, this is the manually closing one. It should click at some point. The taillight, one of these was replaced at some point. I forget which one because it had bugs in it. We've now got bugs in another one, but frankly I don't really care that much. Other wear and tear, well, you know, there's some scuffs on the trim from sliding stuff in. We treat this kind of like a pickup truck sometimes. We do a lot of hauling in it, so we've got some marks that are, I'm going to assume, self-inflicted. I don't remember hitting anything like that, but you know, I've had Boy Scouts in here, soccer teams, all kinds of crazy stuff, so I can't really blame them for that, even though we have been trying to be careful. One of the struts squeaked at one point. They lubricated it. It was fine. No problem since then. Other things that I could point out is we do have every now and then a little bit of that condensation in this trim piece. That's because there's a clear plastic overlaid on the taillight here. On the new ones, you'll notice that it's just cut out and you can see all the way straight through to the actual taillight itself. I happen to like this look better, so even though I get a little bit of condensation in there every now and then, I have had them leave it on there because I think this is a little bit slicker look, quite frankly. So I want to keep that. Here's the damage from the collision. It's nothing really major, but it's enough to knock those sensors off. I mentioned the door handles. That's what it was. That was the back side over there was replaced. I think this one was repaired. I think, and you'll see this got just a little bit of that lip there. And then this one was replaced later, and it's like smooth. So there's very slight difference. I mean, you would never know to look at it. So, you know, what are you gonna do? As far as the outside, we have put Expel film on it, so the paint is in really great shape because it's protected by this film. The only defects are there's a little nick in the mirror because I nicked the mailbox while backing up to deliver Boy Scout popcorn, and then of course it got rear-ended, and there's a stone ding somewhere on the nose, which I'd have to look to find it, and you'd probably never find it unless you knew where to look. Other things replaced is the 12-volt battery has been done once. That lasted about 3 years. It was done fairly recently. This car has the 2 latches that go in, the 2 striker plates, or whatever you want to call them, those things. And we did have this button sticking pretty badly. In fact, you'd push it down and it would stay down. And the latch was rusty. So they recently replaced this latch. It's a brand new latch. I had sprayed a crap ton of WD-40 down there trying to fix that, but now all is well. And of course, being one of the old rear-wheel drive cars, it has the gigantic frunk, which you can put a whole suitcase in there. A large full-size like suitcase will fit in that area, and then you can shove some duffel bags and stuff underneath. So I don't know what we would do without this huge frunk. Okay, I'm never going to find where that very slight indentation is. I can't even remember where it's at. But one of the other things people were concerned about in the older cars was getting a crease where the latch for the frunk is. Well, we use the frunk a lot, and there's no signs of crease on this car. Although if I had one complaint regarding the fit and finish, it would be that our frunk, or our hood, the gap has always been just a little bit large there. Compare that to a newer car, it's quite a difference. It's been like that since it was delivered. I've asked 2 different service centers and rangers and all sorts of people about it. Nobody can do anything apparently, so I guess that's just the way our car is, which, whatever, is what it is. We are on the second drive unit. We had a clunk when first starting out, and they replaced that. Battery is original. Any other sign of wear and tear, I'd say, yeah, we're getting some weird kind of this sort of corrosion on a couple parts here and there, but nothing substantial. Okay, looking up at the front suspension, the only other thing that we've really had concern about and was replaced under warranty are the upper control arms. I'm not entirely sure what the diagnosis was there, but we were definitely getting a clunking sound on low speed tight turns, and both upper front control arms were replaced. The steering has also had some funny noises that it's made at different points, and they've mostly shimmed that, and I think they may have replaced some more comprehensive parts on the last time, but again, all under warranty, all updated parts. Hopefully that's the end of those things now that we're running out of our coverage. So that's pretty much it. As far as repair concerns, everything has been addressed. I think usually by the second time. A couple things took more than once, but I think that's not unusual for a new company. And my only really ongoing concern is I'm a little suspicious that we've had some of the suspension parts replaced already, because we don't drive on excessively horrible roads. I mean, I think they're fairly typical for this area, and I certainly do try to avoid every pothole I can. I'm not like an autopilot car, which would just drive over whatever's there. Now, this car obviously is manually driven, so I'm purposely going around those things or avoiding those lanes, because sometimes it's one lane happens to be really bad, and you just learn that kind of thing. So I can't think of any severe impacts that we ever had, but yet we had an issue. So I'm a little concerned about that. The mobile charger, like I said, we're on the 3rd one now. None of them failed completely. They were all things where they would give some funny error occasionally. Most recently it was sticking a little bit, and so when I went to unplug the car in the morning, it would sometimes take 2 to 3 tries, just enough to make you go, well crap, am I going to get stuck because I can't unplug the car? But it always did release, and when I charged anywhere else, whether it was a supercharger or somebody else's UMC or high-powered wall connector, it always unplugged perfectly. I just remembered we also had the top of the dash cover replaced. It had a slight, I think it was the stitch. This stitch here on the original dash cover had kind of a dimple right about there. If you look back on the blog on delivery day, you might be able to see it. So they replaced it with this one, and this one has been fine. The only unusual difference about it for a car of this VIN is that the original dash cover had a line of stitches, I think, that went right along this edge here, and this one doesn't. So yeah, I think it kind of mirrored these actually. So that was a little bit, that was a little change. Not a big deal. It's actually a little cleaner looking this direction, this particular way. But that was also replaced. And that I really do think is everything. One of the things we've noticed as old owners is Tesla seems to have been taking out some of their unique features. We love this open space down here. And we never wanted to have a yacht floor in there, so stuff would slide around. Slides around enough as it is. And we never got a console or anything because we liked this openness. In fact, my wife puts her purse there. I like to put a camera down there or a lunch bag. So we do enjoy having that. They've also made the frunk substantially smaller, and we use that big frunk for all of our trips. When they went to the dual motor, they cut it back significantly, but it was still usable. And then now on the refresh, it's teeny tiny, and you get a teeny tiny frunk even if you have the rear wheel drive option. So that's a big differentiator that, you know, these two things used to be things that were, as plain as they are, kind of a wow factor when you'd show people the car. And those are away on the new cars. So again, we are very satisfied with the car. We use this car a lot. For us, this is a huge amount of miles to be putting on as fast as we did. And we're looking forward to keeping this car for as long as it's economically feasible, which I hope will be a very long time. And no major complaints. The service we've gotten has been great. And in fact, something everybody always asks is, what's your rated range like? Well, when this car was new, it would display 267, and now it will display 255, but it will keep charging. So I think that the algorithm is really just off. That's mainly because I tend to drive it pretty enthusiastically most of the time and fairly short distances most of the time, and I think that's really skewed it. The lifetime average watt hours per mile on this car is about 340 kilowatts a mile, so I think that's why the range calculation comes in as it is. If I had to make any criticism or any heads up to people who are looking at these cars as CPO, it would be tire life. It's pretty hard on the tires, at least the back tires, being rear wheel drive. That probably has as much to do with the way it's driven as anything else. But aside from that, it has been a great car. We really like it, and highly recommended. It's better than any other car we've ever had, and I'm looking forward to seeing that odometer rack up many, many more miles, hopefully trouble-free. Hopefully all the kinks are worked out at this point, and it's really what the warranty period is for, is to get all the kinks worked out so that you're ready for a long extended life with your car, and I'll keep you updated as it goes.
Like that, my last music video, that question is there. It still hasn't changed.
It's
yet,
like the
so.
longest mile. There it goes!
Oh no!
Oh!
Mia, you put your finger in front of it!
Oh, that's what I get for a second-rate camera person. So I opted not to get the extended warranty. I feel that the price is a little steep, especially considering, I don't know, I just think the odds are that I would probably go, and even if I have repairs, that they won't total that. Fundamentally, that's how warranties work. Obviously, they charge everybody a high enough amount to cover the repairs of the few. I'm hoping to be in the few category. A friend of mine, Jake, he is at, well, he's at like 98,000 miles, and he also didn't get the extended warranty, and he has a very early production car. And he's had some very expensive repairs out of warranty, including a DC-DC converter and some suspension components. But even at that, even with repair bills of $1,000 and $2,000 something dollars, he's within 2,000 miles of going over what would have been the end of the extended warranty. And even with those bills, he's coming in under the cost of the extended warranty. So that I think is hopefully where we'll be at. We might have a couple repairs here and there, but it won't be to the extreme end of things. That's what we hope. So in short, very happy with the car. I think it's ready for the long haul, and we'll keep you updated.